Earth is home to many creatures. Some may even consider a few of them monsters. But what of those more elusive and hidden creatures? The ones we just can't seem to find. Welcome to Monday Morning Monsters. Cryptozoologist and paranormal researcher Barnaby Jones talks about the unknown, mythical, undiscovered, and unidentified creatures from around the world, and the people who have seen them, look for them, and research them. Hear from witnesses about their encounters, as well as renowned names in the field about their work and research. Barnaby is the founder and lead investigator for Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society based in Wisconsin. CAPS travels across Wisconsin and beyond looking for connections between different phenomena and how they can all be connected. Now, your host of Monday Morning Monsters, Barnaby Jones.
Good morning, monsters. It is the first Monday Morning Monsters of October, so that means it is Halloween season. It is, definitely my favorite time of year. For those of you who know me, I used to own Misery Haunted House, a seasonal Halloween attraction, so this is definitely my time of year. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up here with CAPS. I want to get going on all that stuff right away here for you so we can get on with the show. First off, yesterday was the first of our Halloween paranormal investigations at the Gainers Tavern. The Gainers Tavern is the Wisconsin's premier haunted gentleman's club right in Mackville, Wisconsin. CAPS offers public paranormal tours of that location every Sunday in October. So the tours run from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. We give you a whole history of the building and some of the evidence and everything, and let you guys come out and do the tour yourself, check it out, do some investigating, and it's a good time. We've had a lot of activity. We had activity last night again. So that's every Sunday in October. You can get the tickets at wisconsincaps.com. Click on either the Gainers Tavern link or on our public events page. Speaking of public events, I'm going to see if this works, because this is the first time we're going to try this. So add to stream. There you go. This is where we are going to be this coming weekend. We're going to be down in Chicago at the Chicago Paranormal Conference, and that's in the Summit Park District, Archer Avenue, and it is from noon to 6 p.m. and a lot of vendors, great speakers. You can get all the information there. Look up Chicago Paranormal page on Facebook. There's a lot more information. There's an event page. Go to the Facebook page for Wisconsin CAPS as well. And we've been sharing the link and everything for that. That is this Saturday down in Chicago. And next weekend, I gotta figure out how to go to the next screen. Not that way. There it is. Next weekend, we have the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference. And that will be our guest. And he'll tell you all about that in just a minute here. So the other thing I wanted to tell you guys about is two things for Halloween. On Halloween, our show here on Monday Morning Monsters is going to be a panel. And that means that we have a whole bunch of guests from everything from Bigfoot, paranormal, cryptids, you name it, is going to be on this event. So if you guys have any questions at all for any of these guests, feel free to come and be a part of that show. It's going to be a lot of Q&A, so we hope that we get a lot of questions in the comments section over there. If you have any questions for our guest today as well, leave your comments over there and we'll get those in. The last thing I want to talk about today on the show is we have a live paranormal investigation that the CAPS team will be doing on our Facebook and possibly YouTube if I can get it to work that way. But otherwise, it'll be live on our Facebook. And that will be on the Saturday prior to Halloween. I believe that is the 29th. So the Saturday before Halloween, we'll be live. We have another location that is very active with paranormal. And you're going to probably see another familiar face from WLTK radio station here on that event as well as a guest. So hopefully you guys can check that out. That'll be on our Facebook page. And so back to the Milwaukee Paranormal Convention. Our guest today, Tea Krulos, is on, and he's going to tell you all about the event and his books and everything that he's got going on. So let's get him in here. Oops. There we go.
Hey.
Todd, we're going to have a war back here. I bring him in, you take him out. Hey, T, how's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great, man. I am just trying to figure out technology this morning, and I like my new banner thing. Seems to work pretty well, so that's good there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself to start out, and then tell us about the event you got coming up.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on the show. I wear many hats, I guess. I'm a freelance journalist. I'm an author. Sometimes I'm an event organizer. And it's all interesting stuff. So the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference, we had our first year in 2015. And the reason it came about was my second book was about paranormal investigators. It's titled Monster Hunters. And I had pitched it to my publisher, Chicago Review Press. And I said, I'm really curious about people that are devoted to these subjects because I've always been interested in it since I was a kid. And so they're like, all right, why don't you do that? So I had a very interesting experience where I traveled around a little bit and got to learn about cryptozoology and ghosts and UFOs. And I had the time of my life writing that book, really. So when we had a release date for that, I was like, instead of just doing a normal bookstore appearance or something like that, I've noticed that there is no paranormal focused event in Milwaukee, which is really sad because you can find paranormal conferences all over the place. So I took the initiative to organize a small conference that year, and it featured some of the people that I had written about in the book and some people that I had met during that journey. And it was a great time. And I was so glad that we were able to provide a venue for people to talk about that. And so it just became an annual tradition. And, the event has had its ups and downs over the years. We've had some really big, successful years. We've had other years where, we've had to be a little creative. 2020, for example, we had an online only conference, but it's still going on, and it's still, I think, a really nice mix of different people from throughout the paranormal communities. And American Ghost Walks has been a sponsor, so it's a free event, which I think is pretty rare for any sort of conference. So anyone can go to it, which I think is great. That's very accessible to people who might not be an expert, but they're interested in checking some of this stuff out.
That's awesome. That's cool. Yeah, for being such a big state, or not a big state, but like for a big state for paranormal and weird stuff, Beast of Bray Road and all this stuff, there doesn't, or there hadn't been a lot of anything for the state that I was aware of. You got the UFO festivals and stuff, but there's no big, especially like you said in Milwaukee, you would think Milwaukee or Madison would have, a big conference like the bigger cities. But that's weird. So good that you got that started. So let's talk about a little bit about this year's event. So when is this year's event?
Yeah. I guess technically we've listed it as October 14th through the 16th. We don't really have anything going on Friday the 14th, although if you go to our website and check out the schedule, you'll see a couple of kind of party events going on Friday night that we didn't organize, but we think that fans of the paranormal will enjoy. For example, the Milwaukee Twisted Dreams Film Festival is going on the same weekend, It's a horror movie festival, and they're having a pre-party Friday night at the Avalon Theater. And there's also sort of a witchcraft-themed music show called Spellbound. That's just kind of a fun rock and roll show if you like that type of thing. And then Saturday the 15th is our main conference day. It's going on all day, 10 until about 5 p.m. at El Verno College. And we have an after party at X-Ray Arcade. And Sunday the 16th is what we call Activities Day. It's not a centralized event, but we have different stuff going on around the city. For example, we have a special tour of Forest Home Cemetery. There's a pop-up pumpkin patch and ghost story open mic happening at a bar called Sugar Maple. We're doing something with Twisted Dreams Film Festival where they're screening Nosferatu. It's the 100th anniversary of that film, and there's a live music score to that. So just some kind of fun things here and there that people can check out what interests them. But yeah, the main day is October 15th. We've got a lot of great guest speakers, including you, and some panels. And we have a very full vendor floor this year. We have about 40 vendors with all sorts of different stuff.
Nice.
So
very impressive.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about some of the other speakers that are going to be there? Oh yeah, you said obviously your big star is going to be me. That's going to be there, but
well, I'll tell you something that I think is going to be of interest to you, and especially to people who are into monsters and cryptozoology. Is I'm really kind of thrilled to have a speaker named Terry Cullen giving a talk. And it's really an amazing story. In 1967, Terry went to the Wisconsin State Fair. He noticed a sideshow attraction that billed itself as, a man frozen in ice or something like that. And so he went into this tent and he started looking at this thing, and he was like, wait a minute, this isn't a fake at all. This looks like it's a real creature. Because he knows some very minute details, like it had the casings from ticks in its skin, and these very small blemishes and wounds to it, stuff that would be really hard to fake, especially back in 1967. So he ended up going in and examining this thing quite a few times, and he desperately tried to get anthropologists and primatologists to take an interest in this, and they just kind of laughed him off. They're like, oh sure, yeah, something at the state fair, and it was very frustrating to him because no one would take him seriously until he contacted Ivan Sanderson. And Ivan of course is considered to be one of the godfathers of cryptozoology, and Ivan happened to have Bernard Heuvelmans was staying at his home. So the two of them actually drove from New York to Minnesota together and examined this thing, and they came to the same conclusion that this was a real creature. Well, the guy who was displaying it got kind of spooked by all this because he thought he was going to get in trouble, is what they thought, So he, the theory is that he ditched the original specimen and he created a fake and froze that into a block of ice, and then was like, oh, hey, it's just a gag. See, I've had this fake thing the whole time. But Terry's very convinced that what he saw was a real creature, and he's going to give a presentation on, his story and why he thinks that. So I'm really thrilled to have him as a guest in particular. I mean, all of our guests are great, Donna Wells is going to be there talking about the Beasts of Bray Road. She runs the Beasts of Bray Road conference. And we have a lot of other speakers talking about ghosts and UFOs. But yeah, I'm especially excited to have Terry Cullen as a guest this year.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I'm very familiar with that story, as you said. And that's pretty interesting. Most of the time, people are trying to convince other people that their thing is real.
Yeah.
And here you got the other way of, oh no, it's just a gaffe, it's just a fake, no, it's not true story. And that's weird,
It's very ironic. It's a high level of irony to the story, but that, yeah, you're right. That certainly is one of the most ironic parts of it, is that he was trying to tell people that this thing never existed. But and Terry has a pretty solid theory of where he thinks that this body originally came from, because the guy who was displaying it, he had some wacky, convoluted story about how a fishing boat discovered this floating in a block of ice out in the ocean. But Terry, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but his theory is that this thing might have come from Vietnam. There had been American soldiers there that encountered what they called a rock ape, and it was a very similarly described creature to what this thing was. And the guy who was displaying it on the sideshow circuit, he was in Vietnam, so it's certainly possible that he could have acquired this body while he was over there and had it shipped back to the United States. So I think he has a story related to this which has never really been told before. So that's what's very exciting to me about having him as a guest speaker.
Definitely. That sounds awesome. I will definitely have to check that out. Hopefully you didn't put him on the same time slot as me.
No.
Because the one other presentation last year was the same time slot that I was, and I was like, well, I guess I can't listen to that one.
No, it's always a big challenge to do the schedule. Yeah. No, you're on,
I think 3 o'clock.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, wait. 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. All right.
Okay. Yeah. And he's on at noon.
Oh, perfect.
So, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. And for those of you who can't make it out there, the story that T's talking about is the Minnesota Iceman. Mm-hmm. And you can go online and see pictures of this thing, the original or the gaff, depending what you believe, the fake version of it. And it's a very interesting story. And it's probably, supposedly one of the few, legitimate Bigfoot that were ever, found or seen or whatever. And it's a really cool story. I'm excited. You're right.
I should add, the other thing that's great about Terry's experience was that when he saw it at the Wisconsin State Fair, the ice was very melted down, and in some places the skin was actually exposed. So he was able to see it pretty clearly. He went to Minnesota to see it again, later that season. Mm-hmm. And by that time, the guy who had owned it had covered it with more ice. So it was harder to see because there was more ice on top of it. So he had kind of a rare opportunity to see it when it wasn't so obscured by the ice covering it. So
it's just another case of things that you don't, the truth is sometimes stranger than fiction. You go to the circus or the sideshow and you think that you're going to see this, fake prop or something, and all of a sudden it turns out to be real. Yeah. But again, because of the stories and, all the stuff going on of that day of, all the things that were gaffes and fakes, like the Fiji mermaid and the furry trout and all that stuff that, you're caught into this bias of things not being real or whatnot. And then all of a sudden you're presented with something that, has credibility, and people still just blow it off because, and this stuff like this is happening all to this day, where, like there's so many pictures of Bigfoot and videos and stuff out there on the internet. And there's so much fake stuff that when this 1 in 100 video comes through that, somebody did see one, got it on a dash cam, got it on a trail cam or something, and it is legit and it's a good picture, that people just blow it off because they think, it's just fake, just like the rest of them.
Yeah. And I should point out, I didn't mention this, but Terry, he is he's an expert on reptiles. He's one of the world's leading experts on crocodiles and alligators. And excuse me, he has his own conservancy, the Dragonwood Wildlife Conservancy. So he works with a lot of reptiles. He's very knowledgeable. And the reason he would go to sideshows is, like you said, he enjoyed seeing the gaffes that they would make, and he would like to look at them and try to figure out how they would make them. You'd be like, oh, they shaved a baboon and attached it to a cod or something like that. It was just kind of fun to see how he put them together. So that's why he was so shocked when he saw this display, and he was like, wait a minute, there's no way they could have faked this thing. It's got all of these, things that indicate that it would be a actual living creature. So I think that's kind of that was quite a life-changing experience for him, because it was the one time where a sideshow attraction got him,
Mm-hmm. My presentation this weekend is on pretty much everything to do with cryptozoology. It's very interactive in that, and one of the things that I talk about is the platypus. Because here's something that was brought over from, in the scientific community. You had this the fur of it, basically the skin of it, a skinned one, and everyone thought that it was a fake, that somebody had sewn the duck bill on it and made this fake creature. So the actual first specimen that you can still see over in I think it's the London Museum or something like that, over in UK, has scissor marks on the bill because they were actually trying to cut it back off of the rest of the body. And it's just, going along with what you said, that, the truth is definitely sometimes weirder than what we think it is, because people just don't know what isn't out there. You can't wrap your mind around these things sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. So, who are your other speakers this weekend? We talked about a little about the paranormal and stuff. I think you have Allison Jordan will be speaking as well.
Yeah, I understand she's going to be a guest on your show.
Yep, she'll be on next week.
She has been with us since the very first conference in 2015, and she always gives a very interesting talk that focuses on Milwaukee in particular. She digs into the case files from throughout history and has talked about poltergeists and exorcisms and all sorts of things that most people aren't aware are part of Milwaukee's history. So it's really great. This year, her focus is going to be on crisis apparitions, and which are, ghosts that appear before or directly after someone dies, kind of say goodbye to people. So she's giving a talk. I'm hosting a panel. It's called Macabre Milwaukee, and it has 3 great local authors, Anna Lardnos, Matthew Prigge, and Gavin Schmidt. And they've written about history, hauntings, disasters. Gavin's written several books on the Milwaukee Mafia. So we're going to bring up some classic Milwaukee disasters that have happened, like the New Hall House fire was a hotel that burned down in the 1800s. And I'm sure we're going to talk about local mafia history a little bit. Not necessarily ghost stories, but definitely some of that violent history. And there are ghost stories associated with these stories for sure. So we'll be mentioning that. But they're very interesting, dedicated writers here in Milwaukee. I'm trying to think what other speakers we have this year. Oh, Jeff from Badgerland Legends. He's, again, another person that's very devoted into, looking up history and talking about different legends and lore. We've got, I think one of the funnest new things that we have this year is Tom Klein, who does a podcast called Off the Rails, is leading a discussion about The Secret, which was this book produced in the 80s. And this guy hid these hidden treasures around the country, but he hid them a little bit too well, because only 3 out of 12 have ever been found. And there's one in Milwaukee somewhere. So Tom's going to...
Supposedly.
Yes, he's going to lead a discussion about... people have a lot of different theories about where it might be. Most people think it's somewhere in Lake Park, but that's not necessarily true because no one's found it. So, again, not a paranormal thing, but something that we thought was kind of fun and mysterious that we could tie into the event this year. And American Ghost Walks, who sponsors the event, is going to do a presentation with some of the tour guides to talk about their favorite ghost stories here in Milwaukee and around the state where they have other tours. So, again, it's a really good lineup. We try to get a good mix of different people on different subjects to keep it fresh. And we've had some people like Allison who have been there every year, and we always try to rotate in some new people too, so we can see a new face and hear new stories. So, yeah.
Definitely sounds like there's something for everyone, even if you're not even into paranormal. I mean, you got the history and the gangsters and stuff and the secret, and you got something for everybody out there. So
yeah, and awesome. We, like I said before, we try to really make it accessible. Like if you're really into paranormal stuff, then obviously this is a place you want to be because you can meet other people who are. But we try to make it appealing to people who might just be interested in the X-Files or something like that and are a little bit curious about it. We want to we don't want to be gatekeepers. We want to welcome new people in and have them experience it maybe for the first time. So
definitely something for all levels of interest or expertise. That's really cool. So awesome. All right, we are going to take a quick station break and then we'll be right back with more.
If you're a fan of the paranormal world, then you'll love WLTK-DB Talk Radio. Talk shows bringing you the latest on everything paranormal, cryptozoological, metaphysical, true crime, psychic readings, and more. The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.
All right, we're back here on Monday Morning Monsters. My guest is Tea Krulos. He is an author, he is a researcher, and he is the host of the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference coming up the next Saturday. Correct.
Yeah.
I got this one and I got the Chicago one, and I keep flipping them back and forth, and I got to keep figuring out which one's first. But yours is going to be next weekend.
Yeah, I'm sure for you, like everyone in the paranormal business, October is a very hectic month. There's a lot going on always.
Definitely.
I didn't mention I also lead ghost tours for American Ghost Walks. It's a historical / ghost story walking tour here in downtown Milwaukee. And so, of course, all of October, we're very busy. We book a bunch of extra tours. We book some private tours and stuff like that because this is a month when everyone wants to hear a ghost story. So,
yes. So we talked about the conference in the first half. I want to give you a chance a little bit to talk about some of. I know you have books out as well. So why don't we start with your first book? Tell us a little bit about what's it called, where can people get it, stuff like that.
Yeah. So. I've written about a variety of different subjects, both as a journalist and an author. I think some people really focus on a niche, which is great. But, I like to move on to other subjects. So, but I would say my focus overall has been interesting subcultures, groups of people, stuff like that. So the first book I wrote, it's titled Heroes in the Night. And it's about a rather unusual subculture of people that call themselves real-life superheroes. And they actually adopt their own superhero personas. And some of them have kind of a mild approach where they'll, do charity events or something like that. Well, some of them actually think that they're like Batman, and they will go out and patrol the streets looking for crime to stop. And I'd read a very brief news blurb about this, and I was like, wow, that's really fascinating. I wonder if there's a local Milwaukee real life superhero. So I got on Google and I found a guy who calls himself the Watchman, and he had a MySpace page. This was back in 2009 when people were still on MySpace. So I messaged him and I'm like, hey man, I'm really interested in this. You think you might meet up with me so we could talk about it? And we set up this meeting at a park near my house one night. And I'm just like kind of walking around alone in the dark. And then all of a sudden I see this guy and he's got his costume on. And it's hard to describe it, but it wasn't until that moment where I was like, oh, this is real. This guy's for real. There he is, you know? And we talked, and I really liked him, actually. And a lot of what he said made sense. And I was like, all right. And I just kind of fell into this rabbit hole where I didn't have a book deal or anything, but I would save up some money, and then I would take a long weekend, and I would go out to New York and hang out with some real life superheroes there, or I'd fly out to Seattle and spend a couple days there and slowly put this book together. So it was quite an experience. I went on a lot of patrols with these guys. There was at least one that ended pretty badly because the superhero that I was hanging out with, his name is Phoenix Jones, out in Seattle. He saw a group of people fighting and he pepper sprayed them, and they all got really angry and began to attack us. So I got punched in the face that night, and sometimes you got to suffer for your art a little bit. So, and Phoenix Jones got arrested that night. So it was pretty frightening.
I would just like to point out at this point for people, because if you haven't met you, you're not a small man. How tall are you?
I am 6'5" and weigh quite a bit. So yeah.
So you patrolling the street alone is pretty impressive. So
so that was my first book, and it was very exciting, and that's my publisher was happy with it and asked what I wanted to do next, and that's when I wrote Monster Hunters. So I met a local group called the Paranormal Investigators of Milwaukee. I hung out with them and went several ghost expeditions with them. But I did a lot of really fun stuff. I went to the Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant, which was great, of course. I went out to meet Lauren Coleman at his International Cryptozoology Museum and interviewed him there and got to look around his museum. I'm trying to think what else I did. I went down to Florida to the Skunk Ape Research Headquarters. It's like a campground run by this interesting character. And I went to the International UFO Congress in Arizona. That was the biggest UFO related thing I did for that book. And it was very much a learning experience. I met some great people that I'm still friends with today. I met a couple of probably shady characters that I don't know if I would believe anything that they say, but that's kind of the paranormal world. You meet really great, earnest, sincere people, and you meet some hucksters, So, like I say, it's still something that I'm not very deeply involved. Like I'm not part of an investigation group or go out on investigations on a regular basis, but it's still something that I'm very interested in. I would say probably my only regret about running the conference is that I'm usually running around troubleshooting, so I don't get much of a chance to sit down and enjoy the talks myself, which is my only complaint. But But certainly I do enjoy talking to people at the conference and catching up with them. There's a lot of people. That's the one time a year I see them. So it's great to see people.
Definitely. So do you have any books in the work right now that you can talk about, or what are you working on now?
Oh yeah, I should mention my other books too. So that was Monster Hunters was my second book. I followed that up with a third. It's titled Apocalypse Any Day Now.
Oh, good.
And it is I would say it's kind of the loose theme is people's beliefs on how the world is going to end. So I talk to people who have made religious predictions. I talk to preppers, as they're commonly called. And I had some interesting experiences with that. Like there is a guy who has made these luxury condos in an old missile silo out in Kansas. And after like emailing him quite a few times, he finally agreed to give me a tour. So I was able to tour these doomsday condos in this abandoned missile silo, which was it was very impressive as far as like the technology that went into it. But it made me feel a little uneasy. I was like, I don't know how I would feel being stuck down here with a bunch of people. Like, I think I would maybe be the first person to lose their mind, you know? But it was a very interesting experience, you know, and in all of these writings, I'm never like looking to make fun of people or belittle them. I'm genuinely really curious to figure out like why they think the things that they do and stuff like that. So that was my third book. I wrote a book called American Madness. That was about a very intense conspiracy theorist that I met. And he believed all of the conspiracy theories. And I was just kind of fascinated with his life because he had an interesting life and why he believed these things. And it was really funny. This book was published in 2020, but I finished it in 2019. And I was like, I wonder if there's going to be any conspiracy theories in 2020 that I could talk about because they'll be topical. They were tied into the book. And that turned out not to be a shortage.
It's all your fault. It's all your fault.
I was like, oh, wow, I did not expect this. So it turned out to be a very topical book. It's kind of a sad story, but I think it's an important one because it shows why people believe some of these things and why it's easy to believe some of these things. So I wrote that, and also the same year, 2020, I had a little book come out that's titled Wisconsin Legends and Lore, and it collects folklore from around the state, including monster sightings, and there is a chapter on ghost stories as well. I would say if you're very much into the paranormal, this is going to be viewed as kind of a beginner book to someone. But it's a very nice little reference book, especially if someone is curious about this and maybe hasn't done a deep dive into these subjects. I would recommend it for people like that. A lot of people like to buy it for a gift. I've noticed they'll give it to someone that has an interest in that. So right now, I'm really excited about this book project. We're really just at the beginning. But I have a friend named Jenny Sanchez, and she is a travel writer from Denver. And me and her are co-authoring a book with the working title Paranormal Road Trip. And it's going to be just like a travel guide that lists all of the famous haunted locations you can visit in every state. It's pretty ambitious because we're trying to do all 50 states. So there's a lot of work to be done there, but you know, it's kind of a project where I'll be watching TV and I'll just research some places in a certain state and start making lists. And it's going to be one of those really slow but steady type of projects that we're both, you know, we're kind of dividing up some states and working on it together. So it's an interesting experience because I've never co-authored something before, but it's kind of nice because writing can be really lonely sometimes.
Mhm.
So having someone to work with is kind of nice, just because you have someone to talk to about the project.
Yeah. I can give you a little bit of advice for that book. I
Yeah.
recently met Jeff Craig, and if
Okay.
you're not familiar with him, he actually made what is called the Map in Black.
Oh,
And
okay.
it is a full United States map, and it has every burial mound, every haunted location, all kinds of cryptid sightings, all kinds of stuff on there.
Oh,
He's a
cool.
super great guy. He's a cartographer for his day job, and
Oh,
he started this project. He's actually going to be a guest on my other show, Whispers from the Dark. So that'll be coming out in a couple weeks here in October.
oh,
Um,
great.
but Jeff Craig, it's called the Map in Black, like Men in Black, but Map in
Uh,
Black. And little shout out for him. He is also hosting the first ever Frogman Festival
oh, wow.
coming up here, because for those of you interested, the Loveland Frog sightings and stuff out in Loveland, Ohio, has not got its fair shake. So
Yeah.
he set out to do the Loveland Frog Festival in March here, and Caps is going to be at that event as well. So
Oh, that's great. I'm really loving seeing some of these towns embracing their local legend with a festival. Like, there's the Beasts of Bray Road Festival that's pretty new. I think they just did their second event.
second year, yep.
And I don't know. I know there's others that have popped up.
We were just
All
at
over the
Van
place.
Meter. There's a
You're right. Yeah,
Mothman Festival. I mean,
yeah.
yep,
Very cool stuff.
cool. Mhm. So, you went out for some of these, like when you were researching your book on the paranormal and cryptids and stuff. You said you went out with, like, hung out with these different groups and that. Did you ever go out in the woods and investigate Bigfoot, look for it?
I did. One of the wildest nights of my life was I really wanted to go out Bigfooting. I kind of had like a checklist for the book of things I wanted to do. Ghost investigation, obviously. I wanted to go to the Cryptozoology Museum,
Hmm.
and I really wanted to go Bigfooting. I think it was Lauren Coleman, actually, that introduced me to Jim Sherman, who is a Bigfooter in Michigan. And he is one of the Michigan reps for the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, right?
Mhm.
So I contacted him. He was really nice. He was like, yeah, there's a property in central Michigan. It's on farmland, and the people who own the land have been having these experiences. And I've been out there a couple times. I'm going back out there this summer. So I was like, okay, great, and I joined him, and we camped out, I think, for 3 days or so. Central Michigan, there was not even a town nearby. The name of the county was Isabella. So that's this way I referred to this property as Isabella. And the couple who owned this farm said that things had been thrown at their house and at their barn, and that their animals were getting spooked out, and they would hear growling in the dark, and all sorts of stuff was going on there. So we had this, we camped out, and we didn't really experience anything. But the last night we were there, I will never forget this night. It was late, and so I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to sleep. I got into my tent, and I was just about to fall asleep when I heard this blood-curdling howl, and it sounded like it was right next to my tent. And I was like, oh my God, that's Bigfoot, So we actually think that it wasn't Bigfoot. We think it was probably a coyote or something. But this is not even the story. I get out of my tent eventually. I'm frozen with fear. I didn't move at all for like 5 minutes. Finally, I like slowly unzipped the tent and looked around. I thought for sure I was going to see Bigfoot. And I ran over to Jim's Jeep. He was sitting in his Jeep, and he was trying to text me. And I knocked on the window and scared him very badly. So we're both frightened, and we're sitting in his Jeep. And I'm like, oh, and I'm kind of looking at the field because I'm expecting to see, Sasquatch walking through the field. And I'm like, wow, I'm really scared because the star up in the sky, it looks like it's moving. And then I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, it is moving. So I was like, Jim, you see this thing? And we got out of his Jeep and we looked at this thing through binoculars, and it was this ball of light, and it looked like it had like smaller lights that were kind of moving around it. And it would just like zip from one location to another and like hover there and kind of move a little bit and then zip over to another part. Once in a while, light would come out and illuminate the tree line a little bit. And it was unlike anything I've ever seen. And, I've never tried to claim that I saw like the extraterrestrial mothership or whatever, but I mean, this thing, it wasn't an airplane or a helicopter. It wasn't a drone. I don't know of any possible explanation for what this thing could have been. And we got some video of it, and I got to experience like why people get so frustrated, because it was hard to follow this thing. It was hard to focus on it. So all you can see is this light kind of moving around a little bit. But yeah, it was a very strange night. And a very strange experience. Yeah. We went out looking for Bigfoot and we saw a UFO instead.
That's one of the old adages in the research and stuff is, if you go out in the woods to find Bigfoot, you're going to have a terrible time. It's going to be a terrible night. If you go out there to, spend the night in the woods, hang out with your friends and stuff, and maybe see something, hear something, you're always going to have a good time. And it sounds like that's what happened is you went out there and had a good time and then saw UFOs. So
yeah, it was very unusual. And then it just disappeared. So yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
And I got to experience what people feel like when they experience something too, because I would tell my friends or family about it and they'd be like, you've been out in the sun with those Bigfooters too long. You're starting to see things. And I was like, yeah, I saw it. And Jim saw it too.
Was it way off like a star, or was it closer? Like people see the orbs of light with Bigfoot as well. Like how far away would you have said it was, like a plane or closer or farther? Or?
Yeah, it was like maybe a football field away, pretty high up in the sky, above the tree line. Like at first I thought it was a star or like a comet or something, but it was bigger than the rest of the stars, and the erratic moving of it was just so strange. So yeah.
So it was fairly close then.
Yeah.
Okay.
But cool. It was kind of hard to tell exactly how big it was because it was up in the sky.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's an awesome story. That's good that you got to experience that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, I think that was like the most actual field work that I got into with cryptozoology. I mean, I took a drive down Bray Road, but didn't do an extensive investigation there or anything like that. And Mothman, I think my angle on that was just going to the festival and enjoying that and hearing the speakers to talk more about how that, like we were mentioning, it's become such a cultural phenomenon and such a part of the identity of Point Pleasant now. Mm-hmm. It's really like one of the biggest things that the town has going for them these days.
So I'm curious, as a researcher, author, and stuff like that, and going out there, what is your take on the whole Mothman original Point Pleasant story as such as like the whole Harbinger of Doom thing never really came about until after Keel's book. Uh-huh. Like no one ever put the Mothman sightings with the Silver Bridge collapse together until it was out in the book and then it became more mainstream and stuff. But those things were never associated. So, when you're talking about, researching the cultural aspects of this stuff. So what do you make of that whole situation?
I mean, it's an interesting theory, I think, that he came up with, but I think he's a good storyteller, so he knew when he would, pick up something that could be added to the story would make it more interesting than it possibly was, is my opinion of John Keel. I think he was a talented writer. I think, he kind of stitched together a lot of stuff that maybe wasn't related, but he was able to puzzle it together in his mind. So I know that his reporting was not necessarily 100% accurate, is what people have told me or that I've read. So yeah, I don't know if the Silver Bridge thing, like I say, it's an interesting theory, is what I'll say about it, but might be more of a creative writing thing.
We recently did an episode on the Chicago Mothman sightings, and as part of that, we went back and did the whole Point Pleasant situation, all that. From the point of view of the average person that's interested in Mothman and Point Pleasant, you're seeing the Mothman and the Silver Bridge. But there was so much other stuff that Keel writes about that happened. The Men in Black, first started showing up, and those stories, and the olive-skinned people that showed up in town, and what's his name, the main alien guy.
Oh yeah. Indrid Cold.
Yes. Yep. Indrid Cold. I mean, that whole thing took on a whole story of its own. That like you don't. People that have done the research, like obviously yourself and me, and that have dug into this, are familiar with, but the average person that, is just, Mothman fanatic or something, do you think a lot of people even know those stories or all the rest of the Keel universe that went along with that?
I think, that's probably reserved to people who have read his books and maybe to a lesser degree the movie. I know the movie was popular and had some of those ideas in there, but yeah, I think Mothman has become this sort of like wider cultural thing I've noticed over the last couple of years, where it's almost like a cartoon character or something, and I don't think people even know that it's based on a real story at all. Because I see a lot of like memes and art that has Mothman in it, and some of those, I get the impression that they think it's an internet thing and not like that there's a story behind it. It's really interesting.
Definitely. And we had like a lot of these sightings and reports and stuff coming out of the Chicago area recently. And that's kind of pushed it back up into, the internet world and stuff. But I really don't even think that that's had much effect on people's interest in it, because, like there's so much, like you said, there's everywhere, cartoons, t-shirts, everything of, comic strips and everything about Mothman and songs and, all this stuff. And I mean, sure, there's all this Chicago stuff that's going on, but I don't think that's what's brought it out and made it big. We're still pulling from the original sighting there.
Yeah. And I think people just think it's a cool image or character, which it is. I'm thrilled to see all the art and stuff about it, but yeah, I think it's developed a life of its own. So I have been very interested in the Chicago case too. I was actually going to write kind of a lengthy piece about it because I've known some of the people that were involved in investigating that case, and there's kind of a I'm trying to think of how to say this without getting in trouble.
Yeah.
There's been a very sharp difference of opinion on these sightings and cases, and it's gotten kind of ugly at times, I would say.
Very much.
So I interviewed a lot of people that were involved, and it's a strange thing to try to figure out, because it does seem like there is some fakery going on. somewhere along the line. I don't know where, but there's a lot of supposed reports that don't add up, and they come from a mysterious anonymous source. So it's hard to, do a follow-up interview or anything like that. But,
well, let me ask you this, without pointing fingers at anybody and getting into the drama of this. We'll keep it based on actual facts. If you obviously, I don't think you've watched our episode on Mothman and stuff. We actually interviewed a couple people that had encounters.
okay,
So
yeah,
I know
sure.
for a fact that there is some things. So I'm posing the question to you, in your research and stuff, have you actually talked to anyone that has seen one?
I haven't personally. Like you say, there have been people who have given their story in a way that isn't totally anonymous.
Yep.
So I do think that there are a couple of sightings that probably have some legitimacy to them. But for those handful of sightings, there is a much larger percentage that it's okay, we got to take the word off some anonymous source from the internet that has very similar wording to other similar reports. I don't think so, so yeah, I think, and this is probably, the case of cryptozoology overall. You have a large number of fakes and people who want attention for some reason, but then you have those really genuine encounters that people have said that they've had. And those are what, keeps people going in this field, I think, is those cases that do seem like they have something to it.
I have interviewed, like I said, a couple people that are in the episode that we talked to, and since then I've actually talked to a couple more people who have had firsthand encounters. And when we're talking about the whole phenomenon of the Chicago sightings and stuff, it starts back in 2017 and kind of snowballs from there. And when we did our episode, I tried to dig deeper past that, and I went to Linda Godfrey. And I asked Linda Godfrey, and I said, you get reports of everything around the country and stuff, and you're one of the foremost authorities on weird Wisconsin and all that stuff. How many reports have you got? None. Okay. But, and here's the thing that I point out in the episode as well, is that when you search Mothman, when you search Chicago, when you search bat humanoid, flying humanoid, any of that, you are directed to one of two sites anyway. So if you're going to report it, you're going to report it to them. We're just looking at this from, well, why are they the only ones that are reporting this? And that's 100% why. If you search anything, the first topic that comes up on Google search, whether it's right, wrong, or otherwise, that's where you're going to go with it.
Yeah.
But here's another point. You have two other credible people, I would say, in my opinion. Nick Redfern, who's written a lot of books and stuff. He writes in his one of his UFO witness books that in 2017, a lot of his UFO witnesses started having nightmares about this black winged creature above Chicago.
Wow.
And that has nothing to do with the other situation.
Yeah.
The other one is psychic medium Chris Fleming.
Okay.
From a lot of your TV shows, look him up and stuff. I would consider him, pretty credible. One of his friends called him and told him that they saw it on the side of the road.
Wow.
And then you have Doug Hychek, who is the showrunner for Monster Quest. He's done Bigfoot or Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, all these, credible guys. Well, he's actually seen one in Minnesota.
Wow. Because
when he was doing Monster Quest, he tells a story in his presentation. He says, they wanted him to do the Mothman. He says, that's hooey, that's bull. I ain't doing it. I want something with credibility. And he said he's driving down the woods, and all of a sudden this thing flew right over his car. He thought he was going to hit the windshield, and he goes, all right, I guess I'll do the show now. So, so definitely, you want credible witnesses that, have seen it or firsthand accounts. There's three guys that are outside of this bubble that all have reported similar sightings, maybe not just in Chicago area, but, also. And then I have other people, like I said, that I've talked to. So it's a shady thing,
Yeah. Very interesting stuff.
But yeah, it sucks, like you said, with the people that for whatever reason hoax it, or maybe it's not the people that are reporting it, but the people that are writing to them that are doing this. So you can't point fingers there as well. But it makes it so much difficult for the people like me that go out there and research, because now we have to not only weed through the credible reports and all this stuff and try and find the actual facts here. But
it's the internet. People like to mess around with other people on the internet. It's like a pretty consistent thing, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, for anybody interested, go to Wisconsin Caps and visit our YouTube page, and we got the part 1, part 2 of the Mothman stuff on there. You can check it out, Chicago Mothman sightings. You can get into all that stuff on there and hear witnesses and stuff, but that's not what we're here for. We're here today talking to you. I'm sorry, I get out of my whole soapbox here.
No, it's very interesting stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely, I agree. But we're almost out of time here, so I want to make sure, where can people get your books, for one? We talked about all your books and stuff. Where can people find them if they want to get them?
Yeah, the best place to go for information on that is my website, teakrulos.com. That's TEAKRULOS.com. And there's a tab for each of my books that has more information and where you can order. I do a column on my website called Tea's Weird Week, where I just write about whatever I feel like writing about. And there's a link to upcoming appearances and stuff like that. If people are interested in the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference, our website is milwaukeeparacon.com. You can also find us on Facebook. And if you forget that link, you can just Google Milwaukee Paranormal Conference and it'll pop up as one of the first links, I'm pretty sure. So, it's happening. The main day is October 15th. Like I said, tickets are free thanks to American Ghost Walks. So you just need to go to the site and you can register for the free tickets.
Very cool. And the only reason you got to register is just so that you guys can keep track of attendance and stuff, right? Like,
yeah, it's that's the main reason we do it. We just want to know about how many people are going to show up, so we're prepared for it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that clear, for people who think, I got to enter my credit card or something.
No, nothing like that.
Nothing like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to keep track of how many people will be there and stuff. So, and then they can get tickets right at the door, correct? Or do they have to pre-register?
They have to pre-register. So
okay. So if you're going to come out there, make sure you go ahead and pre-register on there. It's free, whatever information or stuff, but just go on there and get your tickets ahead of time so that they know that you're coming.
Right. Exactly.
Cool. And you also have Wisconsin. Taylor Nicole is going to be hosting your after party.
Oh yeah. Wisconsin is this really fun TikTok account. And Taylor is going to be giving a presentation at the conference where she's just going to talk about some of the adventures that she's gone on for TikTok. And then, she's also hosting the after party. It's at X-Ray Arcade. It's really cool because it's all ages. So you don't need to be 21 to go. It's a free event. There's going to be music, a few vendors, a smaller space, but there's going to be a handful of vendors, and it's a good time to hang out with people and have fun.
Very cool. I did notice on your website, I wanted to point out one thing in case if it's an issue or whatever. Do you, for the after party, it said you had to have like COVID verification or something, or is that, I know last year we all had to wear masks still. Is there any kind of precautions or anything that anybody needs to know ahead of time?
There's no mask requirements at the conference this year. Okay. I did notice that. I guess X-Ray Arcade, you need to show a Vax card or something like that.
Yeah, it had like a negative test or proof of vaccination. I think it said on the thing. So just for people a heads up and stuff. So, before they go. Mm-hmm. Always good to have all your information and stuff. So, but definitely.
I forget. That's good. I sometimes forget my own information sometimes.
That's what I'm here for. Yeah, definitely. Wisconsin, we got to hang out with her at the Hodag Festival this past year. Cool. She was on the other show, Whispers from the Dark. We were trying to get her to come out for a paranormal investigation, and she said, nope, she was too chicken. So she was not going to come out and do an investigation with us, but we tried hard. But she's definitely a lot of fun. That should be a really cool event as well, the after party. And she's got a lot of fun stories and stuff on her TikTok, and she should have a pretty good presentation as well.
Yeah, and X-Ray Arcade is a fun place. They do have a video arcade inside of the bar, as well as a stage area and a bar area. So it's a fun venue.
Very cool. All right, one last time. When is it going to be, and where can you get tickets?
Milwaukee Paranormal Conference. It runs the weekend of October 15th. The main day is the 15th at Alverno College, and MilwaukeeParacon.com is where you can register for those free tickets.
Very good, man. All right, well, I look forward to it. I'm excited to be a presentator. I am excited to talk because that's what I'm good at. I'm excited to be a presenter again this year. It was a great time last year. We had a lot of fun, a lot of cool people. It's always great to get out and meet you guys. So I'll be out there. Wisconsin, Allison Jordanlin. Who's the guy doing the Iceman?
His name's Terry Cullen.
Terry Collin. Yeah, that'll be cool. Anybody that, you're watching Monday Morning Monsters, anybody interested in this stuff, that is definitely a cool presentation.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. Definitely going to be the one that you're going to want to check out. So very cool. Well, we will see you in 2 weeks, and we will have Allison Jordanlin on next week to also promote the Milwaukee Paracon. Allison is going to be here for Indigenous People Day. And she is going to be talking about the Thunderbirds and other Native American cryptids, creatures, and legends. So she's given a great presentation this past year for us at one of our conventions, and awesome. She's fun, a lot of stories, and you guys are really going to enjoy listening to her, I think. So that'll be next week here on Monday Morning Monsters, and then you can also check her out at the Milwaukee Paracon in 2 weeks. So, all right. Thank you very much, Steve, for coming on. It was awesome stories, and I definitely am super interested in your books. That superhuman one sounds awesome. I was not actually aware that was a legit thing. I've heard about it, but that's cool. All right.
Awesome.
All right, man. Thanks for being on the show today. Until next time, guys, we'll see you out there.